They have a good idea of what's going on, how things work at your company or your farm. You look really organized. This is a big perk. Anyone hired anyone and kind of felt inside like, ooh, I'm not very organized, or I'm not ready for this? We're throwing them in. They'll be fine. Okay. Employees also feel that if you have things organized from an HR perspective, regulations are followed. And it might be a little overlooked, but there's a lot of comfort and a lot of trust that comes from employees who feel like their employer has done some work to follow the right rules. They're getting paid right, all the things are organized properly, all of that. Okay. Communication improves. When you have HR things in place, it's just a lot easier because you've told people expectations from the start. And then, anyone heard of employer of choice? Ever heard that term? Anyone know what it means to be an employer of choice? It's kind of what it sounds like. When you're hiring and you're looking for employees, you have a good reputation, and you're a choice employer, meaning people want to work for you and try to work for you. So setting yourself up as an employer of choice makes hiring and retention a heck of a lot easier. And all of this stuff follows in a circle on repeat, okay? So, let's talk about it. What is it? What exactly is the HR function in your business? It's every interaction that an employee has from hiring to retiring, or if they quit in between, or you fire them. Every interaction with your business is the HR portion. How do you hire people? How do you pay people? What do you do for overtime? What do you do on stat holidays? Do you have benefits? Why or why not? Do you have a retirement program? Why or why not? What happens if I do something wrong? How can I get fired? How much are you paying people when they get fired? All of those things, that's HR. So people will often say to me like, we're small, we don't need HR. But the second you have one person on your payroll, you actually have HR. Because you have an employee who you have to take care of now, and they're going to ask you. It's May Long coming up. Do I get paid for May Long? What if I work on May Long? Do I get paid twice? And if you don't have that stuff written down somewhere, then there's some things that are missing. There's some HR things that are missing, and many of us don't. Right? So, this formula, I'll come back to in a second. When I talk about frameworks, what I'm talking about is exactly that stuff. The basics, the fundamentals. Now, you don't put up your house on a dirt pad without some foundation, right? But many of us hire employees in that way. Like, well, we'll figure it out. We'll work it out. So what I'm asking, and what I think everybody should do, is have some basic frameworks in place so that when you hire someone, they come into a prepared system. So, an employee manual with basic policies. All those things I just said about what do you do with overtime, what do you do with stat pay, and so on and so on and so on, all of that stuff is the basics. If you don't have that written down anywhere, and I'm standing here talking to you, I don't know your farms or your businesses at all, that would be like expecting me to understand how things work at your business. I don't have a clue. Neither do new employees when they start. They don't know. And then you get frustrated because people always ask you questions, right? So some of it is just as simple as writing that stuff down. The books, they're like 25 pages. What are the basics? What do you do for vacation? What do you do when someone works overtime? Does anyone in here have like a retail or seed side or any other component to their farm? Restraint farm. One? Another one? Okay, when you have more than one type of business operating at one time, you need to have different rules for different types of workers. And what if that one worker works in the combine and then goes into your seed plant the same day? What happens to their pay? Technically it changes, but what do you do? So these are all the questions that we ask you, and then we write them down in a book for you. And when new employees start, they get a manual with all the details and information about what it's like to work for you. And you get to decide. These are your choices to make within the legal boundaries. But when you don't write it down and you don't have any kind of system, people just enter and they don't know what's going on. Okay. Employment contracts. Another basic foundational thing that you need, and every lawyer will tell you you need one, but why? Because every deal that you make with someone is a legal engagement and a legal contract every time you hire someone. So, for example, let me tell you why this is important. If you call me and say, someone's worked for you for 3 years, you need to fire them, and I'll say, okay, do they have an employment contract? And if you tell me no, then I have to tell you that you have to pay them out 2 weeks for every year they worked for you. 6 weeks. Because that's what the common law says. If you have an employment contract with a simple line that simply says, in termination, we will follow the Manitoba Labour Standards law, then you only have to pay them 2 weeks. Because under employment standards, 2 weeks pay for 3 years of service is the math. So employment contracts protect you. They protect you in these engagements, and they lay out kind of like the foundation for if things go sideways, what happens. And you want that. You want to have a good understanding of if things don't work out, what's going to happen next. Okay, so you, unfortunately, if you don't have employment contracts in place, legally and technically, you can't just go over and follow the Manitoba Labour Standards termination. You have to follow common law. So there's little details like that are built into employment contracts, that people who build employment contracts for a living, ours is from a lawyer, not from us, because there's a ton of extra stuff in there. What you would purchase from us would be the ones that the lawyers have approved. They build those things to protect you and to protect your employees. Okay. Clear reporting relationships, including family. Many farms have, let's say, a father and son, and they hire a new employee, and the employee doesn't know who their boss is. Right? Who do I report to? So the one person tells me to do something in the morning, and an hour later I get told to do something else. Both people own this farm. I don't know who to listen to. This causes a lot of HR problems. When you hire people, when you have employees, very simply, please have a clear reporting relationship. Have one person that the person it listens to. I promise that will help. Job descriptions with KPIs. This wouldn't be the first thing I would tell somebody to get, but it's important. People need to know what their job is. Foundationally, what are they expected to do? A KPI is a key performance indicator. How do we know if someone's succeeding or not? If they're meeting their KPIs. Honestly, though, in order of importance, I would really start with these two, because those are the most important communication things, and they're the most important things to save you as the business owner. And then performance management, tough conversations. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that, but it happens fairly frequently that people, we don't follow a system to terminate or to discipline or to correct behavior. We often just deal with it quietly and go home upset at the end of the day, or yell at someone after 3 months of being annoyed, and then we want to fire them. So performance management is just a way to break that up into small steps so that we're giving people feedback all the way along. But if your HR frameworks, your HR frameworks are extremely important. Again, it's the foundation. Before you hire an employee, you want to have a foundation, and that foundation should have some basic information, some basic policies, some basic contracts, so people understand how things go.